Hello and welcome to A United Future Goals. I'm Gary Savage.
And I'm Rudy Johnston. Today we'll be joined by Chairman and Owner of the club, David Smith, Commercial Manager, Martin Talker, HR and Finance Manager, Tracy McTrusty. We'll also be joined by Chair of the Football Academy, Alan Gunning, who will be joined by two members of the successful Woking football team.
We'll also be joined by Graham Matthew, Managing Director, as well as First Team Manager Scott Brown, who will be accompanied by two members of the A United Football Academy, John Crawford and Claire Docherty. But that's not all. We'll be joined by a group of fans to discuss their opinions on the club and what they would do if they were in charge. Our first guest on today's show is David Smith, Chairman and Owner of A United. How are you, David?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
So first question, David, how did you become Chairman of A United?
I was at a boozy dinner, actually, and at the end of the night, somebody involved with United had asked me to join the board, so revisited that a couple of days later. Signed all the bits of paper and joined the board, and went along to my first board meeting, and I thought we could maybe do this a little bit better, to be honest. So had a few board meetings, and then I had a bit of a chat with Lachlan, who was the owner back then, and we came up with a deal and bought the club and became chairman. So yeah, it was a fairly momentous moment, but it just seemed another little bit of business, to be honest, at the time. So
Talk us through your plan to get here to the Premier League.
The plan is pretty fluid. It's pretty flexible because it has to be. I think Graham has talked a few times about, in terms of the journey. It's not a straight line journey. We're up and down. You can see it from this season. We're second last season, and we'll be hopefully sort of middle of the road this season. So there's going to be lots of up and down stuff, but it's about getting ready. It's about getting ready and little small increments of getting better and getting better people in the building. In terms of people infrastructure at the club, is night and day compared to what it was like when I first joined. So I would say the journey is more or less on track. I would say I think we're in a reasonable place. I think the people we've got in the building are good quality people. I think what we've done round about the stadium is getting us ready for that. There's always a little bit of luck involved in football, and that's something I've worked out. So let's see how the summer goes, and we might have a serious crack at it next year.
Yeah, so I take it the part of the plan was renovating the North Stand, obviously. Can you talk about the work that has been done in the North Stand? Yeah,
there's been lots of stuff kind of buzzing about in my head. I'm a builder to profession, so I think when you're selling something like a football club, you tend not to invest a lot of money in it because you're selling it. So I don't think there had been a lot of investment in the club for a long time. So I could see that the car park needed done, the hub needed built, we needed proper offices for our staff, a proper shop to make it profitable. I've always wanted to do something in the North Terrace, but to do that I had to acquire a couple of bits of land. Development takes a long time, so it's taken quite a few years to get all that jigsaw put into place. But the North Stand's been a pretty decent journey. I'm contracts managing it, so it's on programme, which is brilliant. And we've got about 8 or 9 weeks to go. So the journey's been good. And to be fair, at the start of that North Stand, we had some huge challenges in terms of affordability. So hyperinflation, as we all know, was horrific a year ago. We've got some horrific ground conditions at the club, being an old stamp works around the back and stuff like that. So there's been lots of challenges, but we're nearly there. So and I hope you agree, it looks pretty cool.
It does look smashing.
So you said about 8-9 weeks till it's done. Have you got like an exact or a close date when it is expected to be completed?
If I give you the date and then I don't hit it, I'm putting myself out there, aren't I? So middle of June. Middle of June we'll be finished. So the building fabric will be finished by the middle of June, and then it's over to the operational staff to make it and dress it and get it ready for starting to take some business into it next season.
I think as a fan myself and the rest of the fans watching, are you going to be doing any big unveiling for the stand? Anything for the fans to come along to?
I think we do have. We've got a good team to come along and open it. So we'll announce that over the next wee while. So delighted that they're going to come along and help us open it at the start of July. So we'll do a bit of a ribbon cutting and stuff that day. So that'll be nice for me. So that'll be good.
So now we're going to move on to talk about the manager. Scott Brown's been there for about just over 2 months now.
Yeah.
What made you appoint Scott Brown over other candidates?
I think changing manager is difficult. It can be emotional as well. With someone's just left, so that's challenging. And I think what we did was we sat as a group and as a board, and we listed all the characteristics and traits we wanted in somebody. And we fairly quickly realised that person doesn't exist. So we quite liked the idea of having a kind of a team approach to it. So manager and assistant manager. And from the first discussion I had with Scott, it's very clear that him and Stephen come as a team, they come as a partnership. And where Scott is maybe where Scott's gaps are, Stephen fills in and vice versa, and really liked that. So between the two of them, they ticked pretty much all the boxes we were looking for. So I think being able to work with somebody and get on with somebody is really important. So the first discussion I had with Scott, it was professional, it was courteous, but we had a bit of a giggle as well, which I like. And I think that makes the working day just a little bit better if you can be light-hearted, and it makes potentially difficult conversations a bit easier to have if you've got that relationship. So I felt that from him straight away, and it was the first time we've ever done it. We interviewed the two of them at the same time, and it was a great interview. It lasted hours. It just went on and on and on, and when we came out of that, we felt really comfortable that they were the guys to take our football club forward.
Do you think the names of Scott Brown and Stephen Whittaker will help attract players to the club and maybe even let players stay?
No doubt. If I'm honest, it probably wasn't part of that the appointment process, because we very clear definition of what we wanted. But I think so. I've spoken to loads of the players, and they're enjoying working with them, they're enjoying listening to his stories and his experience and stuff like that. So there is no doubt that he'll attract a better quality than possibly United could have got before.
So talking about new players, that's sort of for next season. What is your think of the club's goals for next season?
Okay. I suppose ultimately, if you're starting a league campaign, you want to win the league.
Yeah.
That's whatever competition you're in or whatever industry you're in, you want to be the best, don't you? So, so that would be the starting point. But we need to put a bit of realism onto that as well, and know where we are. So there's going to be Falkirk coming up is going to be a challenge in our league. I'm assuming we're in that league, but I'm pretty sure we will be. But Dunfermline and Airdrie have had a season to settle in, and they've both done very, very well. And I think our challenge as a club is to compete with the fans. So when you look at Falkirk, Dunfermline, Partick Thistle season ticket holders, which is a massive part of your business plan and part of your income, we're not even close to that. So we need to think a little bit harder and be a bit more clever than the other people in the league to try and compete at that same level. Hence the stand and trying to capture the hospitality market and the sponsorships that go along with that.
I mean, it's the hardest league in the world. It definitely is. It's one of the closest leagues in the world. As you said, with Falkirk coming up, our team's coming down as well. It's going to be.
Every season's a challenge. I think the season we came second. There was a reasonable chance that season for us. So Dundee had a big budget, but we were toe-to-toe with them for quite a long part of that season. But I think there's a lot of things that can come into injury prevention, and I think that's why we've bolstered all the infrastructure of people. So backroom staff, we've got strength and conditioning, we've got sports science, we've always had physio, but all that stuff should help in terms of injury prevention and making sure we've got the best team on the pitch.
So after the work of the main stand, is there any more projects going on at Somerset?
Yeah, there will be.
So just that?
That's it. That's it.
I like that answer.
There will be.
Now it's the final question. So see, if money wasn't an object, what would your dream A United look like?
That's a belter, isn't it? That's a belter. What would it look like? I would love to get us promoted. It would be amazing for the town. It would be amazing for the club and all the people involved in the club. That would be fantastic. So if we could get into the Premier League and stay, I think that would be an achievement beyond my wildest dreams when I first got involved, to be honest. So I'd be delighted with that. And Europe, obviously.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, David.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Now we're joined by Commercial Manager Martin Talker and HR and Finance Manager and Company Secretary Tracy McTrusty. How are you both today?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, good. Thanks very much for having us.
So, Tracy, first, how did you get involved with the club at United?
I started off actually as a volunteer helping out in a project. It was a shirt sponsorship draw that we did 18 years ago, and I helped out and ended up staying, offered a job, and I've been there ever since, so I'm in my 18th year.
What about you, Martin, then? How did you get involved with United?
So I was a supporter beforehand. My dad took me along to games when I was 13, 14, and then been coming to Somerset Park ever since, and then saw the job coming up that I quite fancied putting my hat in the ring for, and I was lucky enough to get it, and I've been working for the club for 2.5 years.
I think you just answered my question. My next question was how long have you worked for the club for?
Yeah, so 18 years, yeah, long time.
What about yourself, Martin?
2.5 years, so it feels like 5 minutes ago, but yeah.
Does it really?
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about your job role. What does it entail?
Well, most of it's finance, so watching the budgets, the cash flow, what comes in and goes out of the bank, and that's the major part of the finance part. And then there's HR, so if I'm not looking after the figures, it's people and making sure everybody's in the right job role, everybody gets paid on time, and all the policies and procedures to look after those people are in place. Yeah, it is. Can you tell?
What about yourself, Martin?
So yeah, it's quite varied as well. So I mean, I guess the key things are getting advertising in at the stadium and making sure that shirts are sponsored and players have sponsors. But I've also organised events. So it could be the golf day, the Player of the Year, a burn supper. But there's probably not a lot of things that we've all not had to do at some point.
Yeah.
From even making the pies to helping out with selling things in the shop and online shop. Loads of, honestly, it could go on forever, the amount of different things that you get involved in, but it's keeps every day interesting. It's varied.
So, Martin, you were talking about sponsorships, like partnerships there.
Yes.
So how do you decide, as commercial manager, what sponsorships and partnerships are good for the club?
Whoever's got the most money. So, it's kind of a blank canvas a little bit. So if there's businesses, whether that's local or national companies that are interested in sponsoring the club, then I'll just have a discussion with them and see what kind of levels of, investment they want to make, and then we can find a package that suits. Some people it's nice and easy, they just, how much is a board, or how much to sponsor this particular bit. Other people come in and they'll go, I'd like to do something with the club, I'm not too sure what that looks like. So then we have a conversation about how much money they're prepared to put in, and we'll tailor something to suit. But as I say, it's a blank canvas, so there's not really a right or a wrong answer to somebody that wants to get involved. We'll find a way to help us effectively.
Got a question for you both. What's a typical match day look like for both of you?
Oh, is there such a thing as typical?
Oof.
Well, obviously it's watching all the tickets come through first, and making sure that everybody's got the ticket for the game, and that we work with Nick, and he looks after match days probably more than we do. You've got more a sort of aspect to looking after sponsors. I check him. That's when I do have a responsibility for some hospitality, just making sure the bar's running okay, everybody's looked after. A lot of face-to-face on that day, a lot of problem solving, so go back to the tickets issues, if there's any issue with people needing tickets. Yeah, so it's busy. That's when you get the buzz. That's when the Monday to Friday work comes into itself, when you're working up towards the kick-off time. Yeah.
What about yourself, Martin?
Yeah, I mean, quite a lot of planning from my side would go in the lead up. This season, because of the new stand development, we don't have hospitality, so there's been a slightly less sort of pressure because we've not got 100 guests coming that you're having to coordinate. But like Tracy says, I'll still have to look after the sponsors that are coming along and the boardroom guests. So I think probably between looking after making sure the shop's set up for business, making sure if there's any sponsors in the bar, making sure that all the kind of correct emails are went out to people in terms of what's happening, when it's happening, social media stuff, and then I'll look after people during the pre-match period, and then sometimes I'll be doing the updates on social media, and then maybe getting some kids to take some penalties at half time.
Half-time shootout.
Yeah, it goes by in a flash. It is probably the most fun day, to be fair. You know, you could find yourself being there just as long as you are Monday to Friday, but it doesn't feel like that because it's so busy.
Now with obviously the North Stand going to be unveiled and be open for next season, if you're kind of both involved in hospitality, have you got any idea what the hospitality, do you think it's going to be harder for your job next season?
Certainly going to be more pressure on it, I think. Yeah, I mean, in terms of being harder, I don't know, because I would like to think that because it's a brand new facility that people are going to be interested in coming along. Maybe not as much of a hard sell there. I think what we found before was it was quite a slow start. So the games at the start of the season, people weren't really all that interested in coming along for hospitality because the weather was still nice. But then it really kind of picked up before Christmas and sold out for the rest of the year. Whereas we might have the opposite problem this time. People will want to come in early and see it. I mean, the first few weeks of that are going to be probably a bit hear 'em, scare 'em, but we'll get there. And once we get a process and once we get used to doing, you know, something different on a match day, I'm sure it'll be like everything else. It'll just seamlessly click into the everyday.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of interest, won't there, to start with. I mean, it's a new build. Everybody will want to have a look at it. It's certainly going to give us a greater offering than we had before. We'll have more space, maybe more people, and obviously the building itself is going to be so much nicer than the old one. The service is still going to be as good as it was. We've always been really good at delivering that match day experience, so that will continue in better surroundings. So yeah, I think it will take off really, really well, and continue to do.
I think people will be definitely buzzing to see the inside of it.
So.
I know everyone's standing in the Somerset Road ends. They can obviously all see the outside of it. They're all desperate to see the inside of it. I mean, I'm desperate to see the inside of it as well. I think it'll be great.
I've been in the shell. It's already looking good. So the finished product's going to be fantastic.
Even the photos the chairman's been posted online, it just looks. I mean, they've got it done really, really quickly. The stand's getting up. It's great.
It has indeed.
It's a lot bigger inside than you probably think it is as well. So yeah, it's going to be great when it gets opened up.
So Mark, as you're a fan as well, does your position as a fan ever clash with your role as commercial manager?
That's a great question.
Oh, that's
a great question.
I don't know if we can record this, to be honest. So I guess probably I've always kind of see things from the fans' point of view, but equally as a supporter, I probably find myself getting frustrated sometimes with supporters, and I'm thinking maybe, you know, why are you saying that? You should be on our side, sort of thing. So I definitely have found it an interesting kind of switch, an interesting journey. But I'm still a fan first though, so it still get that buzz when the game's kicking off, and I think it certainly, I wouldn't say it feels better when we win or feels worse when we lose just because I'm an employee, but I think if that was ever to change, then I'd be a wee bit worried, you know, if I've seen it as a job rather than something that I've always loved. So
you're tweeting out the scores, then it's like up 3-0 down. I'm not tweeting that.
Yeah, but listen, like, it is great fun. It's great to be involved with the club that I supported, and in being involved in football, which is a sport that I've kind of like consumed most of my life, to be honest. So to actually get paid for it, it's good. It's a great feeling. And then if I ever found that the job was becoming something that was taking away some of that love, then I would probably step away from it because it's been too big a part of my life. If that makes sense. Yeah.
In terms of fan engagement, obviously you're saying you do stuff at half time and other stuff. Is there anything else you do in terms of like getting fans involved with the club and everything?
So probably careful what I say here, but I try and tend never to say no to anything. So
I don't know if that's a good thing or a
yeah,
bad thing.
cut that bit out.
From a finance point of view, it's not always a good idea.
But if there's a local group that are asking for a favour or asking for some tickets, or a charity's asking for a donation, or if there's somebody that, you know, my wee nephew's here and he's from Canada, getting a chance I could have a wee look around the changing room, whatever it is, try and not say no. We only really say no if it's totally impossible or impractical. So from that sense, this might not be a big picture fan engagement thing, but we're kind of ticking off all the kind of people that come along that are maybe interested in finding out a bit more or whatever it is. We'll always try and help. So, yeah.
Right, final question for you both. What's your favourite memory for working with United and being a fan yourself? Mark, what's your favourite memory?
Oh, so favourite memory as a fan or as
Or
an
working,
employee?
either or.
Both, maybe?
Aye.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Think about it. Careful, careful. Need a good answer.
Well, as a fan, it's got to be one of the Kilmarnock matches that I was at. So we beat them too many times for me to narrow it down. But probably the 3-0 game when Andy Walker chipped the penalty. That's probably my favourite time as a fan. And then we have beat Kilmarnock since I've been an employee, so that would be right up there. But for some reason, we played Dundee on a Friday night. We beat them 3-1 on TV, and just everything went great that day. And as an employee, I remember going home thinking, I've got a brilliant job.
Right.
Loved it.
That was a good game. What about yourself?
Oh God, I don't know if I have a favourite. There's many moments. I think moments where we all get together as a whole club. So all the staff and the players, and you just get a chance to see everybody in the, enjoying themselves, and we're not all working. Those are some of those memories are great. Putting the key in the front door of the new offices 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago now. That was a great moment. I've been working out of a porter cabin for 15 or so years, and it was worse. It was way past its worst. So getting a new office, that was a really good memory. Or Ryan Stevenson's goal against.
Oh,
He scored.
Alaba.
That was one of my favourite moments, even though I can't remember who it was against. I was in the director's box that day, and it was just it brought us all to our feet just watching it unfold. So that was a great memory, watching that goal. I don't get to watch as much football now as I used to. I tend to stay in the office when the game's on. So there's loads. There's been loads of great moments, especially over the last few years when we've had so much progress, and you can see it all unfold in front of you of where we're going. We didn't have that for a while, so yeah, it's all good times at the moment.
Well, thank you, Tracy and Mark, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You know
you.
what? We're now joined by Alan Gunning, Chair of the A United Football Academy, and Callum Campbell and Scott Campbell from the A United Walking Football. How are you all?
Good, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, good.
So, I'll start with you, Alan. How did you end up in your role at the A United Football Academy?
Yeah, well, first of all, I've been a United supporter since I was a young lad, basically, so I've always had an interest in the club. And about 10 years ago, I was invited to join the board. Previously, I'd been invited, but I had other roles in charities at the time, and also I was working full-time. But that's how I joined. I was invited to join the board in that time, so I was quite happy to do so.
So what does that role as chair actually involve you doing?
Well, the Academy is a charity in its own right, so, and also a company limited by guarantee, so it's got its own board of directors. So my main job is to chair that board meetings, to try and organise annual general meetings, to make sure all the board papers are in place and so on. There's also a kind of public face to the role, and so I tend to lead specific projects. So, for example, the First Minister, Humza Yousaf, his first official visit when he was appointed was to our childcare project at the Academy. So he came down, so I had to host, in inverted commas, host that event. So there's things to do like that also.
How does the community benefit from the United Football Academy?
The community benefits in a number of ways, and in fact we measured the impact that we have. We were the European pilot for a social return on investment model, and that was econometricians that looked at the social, the health, the employment and the economic gains from our programmes. And so basically we turned $500,000 into about 10 million in terms of the social benefit. So that's the kind of the measure of what we do. But if I describe some of the programmes just very briefly, we basically have an open door to all people from all backgrounds who want to participate in football. We've got a number of programmes right through from youngsters want to be involved in football, a pathway through to the United First Team. as it happens. On the community side, we've got a range of programmes from young kids right through to football memories, so folks with dementia and so on attend these classes. Walking football comes under the academy umbrella, and so there's a whole range of community programmes as well as the Talented Young Footballers programme. So it's both sides, and you know, we have in the academy, I think the last count, over 150 volunteers, so very close links into the local community, and I think the benefits that we deliver, for example, that childcare project, so successful that when the First Minister visited, he had £2 million in his pocket and said we want to roll this across Scotland. We didn't get any of the £2 million basically at United, but I think that's, you know, it shows there's a recognition of the value that we provide.
Yeah, so like, what is the club, like the academy, doing to like, combat loneliness? Because it's on the website often about how you help combat mental health loneliness. Yeah,
it's really important that. So we've got an honest club where guys come along on a regular basis, meet in the hub at Somerset Park. They just have chat, you know, they just meet up. We've got the United Strollers, so that's a walking group where people get involved. And walking football too, I mean, there's a good example of a chap who had quite a serious brain injury. He was really isolated. He got to hear about walking football. I think it was down in Maybole. He turned up to walking football, and he just had a circle of friends established, and has went from strength to strength as a consequence of that. And there's loads of sort of case studies like that, you know, that I could mention, of people coming in and mixing with others. And oftentimes they end up volunteering, and that's another way that they can get involved with the whole kind of setup at the academy. And that exercise that I mentioned earlier, the social return from volunteering is over £1 million. So we're able to say to volunteers, here's the benefit that you're actually at. So they feel good about themselves as well as making a positive contribution to the community.
Yeah. What makes A United Football Academy stand out from all the other academies?
What makes us stand out?
In your opinion?
The European pilot. Well, I think it's important to see yourself as others see, I think, given we're in Burns country. So we're the European pilot for that social return on investment model at club level. So one of the things I had to do, it was a real hardship. I had to go across to Germany, to Frankfurt, to the German FA. They had all the other national associations there. So the United logo was right up there, and they were describing what we had done because they wanted to roll the model out. We were the Professional Club of the Year for the SFA last year. We won the Silver Award from UEFA in terms of the grassroots work we do. Olympique Marseille won the gold. They just happened to get lucky, but and more just last week there, I mentioned volunteering is really important. We have got the Investing in Volunteers award. So when you put all of those things together, I think and it's not about the badges on the sleeves. I think it's about, you know, the recognition that the work that we're doing is outstanding, basically. And it's nothing to do with me. It's all the guys that work behind the scenes, our staff and our volunteers. I think we can evidence, you know, that what we're doing is having a real positive impact. And I think that we put our heads above the parapet for things like that social return on investment exercise. Shows that we're quite willing to try and help others along. And I mentioned earlier the rollout of the childcare project, and that was purely down to the good work that was done by the United Football Academy, and now other academies in Scotland are getting the chance to participate in the same programme.
So from like the academy's point of view, how well do you think like loan deals and exposure to adult football help those young players progress?
I think that you have to be careful. I think that the young player has to be ready, I think, to benefit from that. But loaning AUFA players or graduates out can be very successful. I mean, Ollie Ecripoint's really setting hell on fire through East Stirlingshire at the moment, as is Dylan Watrick. Other loans, I think, it helps the players sometimes to find their level. It doesn't always mean they're going to develop into playing at championship level or premiership level. Sometimes that exposure to, for example, what used to call junior football. It can be, that leads to other opportunities for them. So I think as long as it's done correctly, and we have quite a, also chair something else called the Joint Technical Board, which is where the club and the academy come together. So David Smith, the club managers, and others are there around that table. So at every meeting we'll go through the loan players and we'll make sure we'll get a feedback on how they're doing, because there's a duty of care towards those players. So it can be a positive if it's done correctly.
Yeah. So as we were saying, the United Youth Academy obviously, the United Academy provides walking football.
Yeah.
Can you guys tell us, for people who don't know how walking football works, like what is walking football, how does it work, what are the rules?
Well, basically don't run, that seems to be
that is in the room, yeah.
Or as they say these days, not walk. If the referees pull you up, they say not walking. So it's basically a slower game for people in general over 50 to get them back involved in sport. Maybe people that haven't been played for a while, sort of thing, just to get them active. There's obviously the physical benefits, but also the mental benefits of being out and getting involved in sport again.
Just something slightly to add to that is the fact that we're talking about the not walking. We were finding for a short while there that a lot of people who were very fit were coming in from playing normal five-a-side football, and so there's a development of this speed and also walking, which was really running. Yeah. And the last couple of seasons have realised that to make it something special for itself, they have brought in a very strict rule of walking, almost to the international standard of walking, which you can get for the Olympics. And so it's fast walking, and they are very tight on it now because they want to make sure those rules make it a defined sport in itself, not just a slightly slower version of five-a-sides. So that's come in. And also we're not allowed to hit the ball too high, which is a major one because we do have a lot of people with head injuries. You were saying earlier about a person who had a brain injury, and he comes from Girvan actually, and he's now set up one of the Girvan walking football ones, but he went from a very unfit man with a brain injury to now being one of our star players who plays at full walking football speed. He's lost tons of weight, he looks great, and that's all down to walking football.
How would you compare normal football to walking football? Would you say it's harder or easier?
I think it's harder when you do start. Obviously the tendency is to try and run, especially if you're used to having played football at some sort of level. And a lot of the guys that are involved in the walking football programme are guys who did play back in the day, whether it was at junior, amateur, or even just like five-a-sides with mates or stuff like that. So the thing you've got to drill into them is just to try and slow it down, sort of thing. And when we also limit it at our sessions to 3 touches, which means that you don't get the better players hogging the ball, sort of thing. It gets more people involved, sort of thing. So that's I think the thing that most people struggle to, but once they get their head around it, I think they really enjoy it.
What makes you guys? Sorry, you going to add something?
I was going to add there. You're talking about the levels. We actually, if you play in the big competitions, you'll come up against ex-Premiership players who are playing there now, and they're playing at the slower level, and they've got the skills. And I think it's something that some of the original adverts that were seen about walking football, which was the one in television about the guy who'd invented it, and it was slow and it was old people hardly moving towards the ball. It's not like that. No. It's even for all we're saying about the walking, it's fast, it's intense, and there's players with real skills, especially at the Champions League level, which Ayr did so well in last year. So it's all about skills, and there's a lot of skills going. You talked about juniors, five-a-siders, everything. Any level can get in there, but you do have to be on task.
What makes you guys want to play walking football? What makes you get up in the morning and go, that's it, I'm going to play walking football?
Well, from my point of view, it was just a case of getting myself active again, sort of thing, after a few years of not playing football. And I think when I turned 50 a few years ago, I thought that's a good opportunity to get out and just... I knew a few of the guys through my work, sort of thing, who were involved in football, so it's just as much the social side of thing as well, just a chance to get out and get a couple of games of football a week, sort of thing, build the fitness up, and obviously there's a lot of the social side to it as well. We have a lot of events outside the actual football game, sort of things, and we go on sort of trips to local competitions and abroad as well, sort of thing. So it's been a great benefit, I think. It's always with the walking football a case of balancing out the physical side of things and also the mental side of things, the social inclusion, particularly coming through the pandemic sort of thing after that as well. And
for me, there's a number of things. I got into it because I was terribly unfit. I was diabetic and I put on so much weight. I had no energy, whatever. And someone just said, walking football, try it. And in the time I've been there, I have reduced myself from 17.5 stone down to just over 13 stone. And that is through walking football. I can't say I've changed my life much other than that. It's regular stuff. And you mentioned mental health. Yeah. Also, when you had retired and I felt, a bit lonely. You get lonely in your house. And my job means that I work on a editing suite all the time, so I'm not really seeing people. And the great thing is what you were talking about there, meeting people, talking to them, even just the banter that you used to have when you did it. And another thing as well, I don't think you can forget about it, is turning up at the competitions, wearing Ayr United's badge on you, and you are part of Ayr United. Now, we talked about Football Academy, but the slogan for the club is "We are United," and they are very clear that we're as much an Ayr United team as the other teams that go out, whether it's the younger players, the main team. We're representing Ayr United, and the feeling for a lifelong Ayr United fan who finally gets to pull on one of the jerseys is unbelievable. Mental health, you can't feel better than after that.
Yeah. So I think always can answer this question, like what success is the walking football team at Ayr United, what success have you had?
Well, we've had numerous successes. The Ayr United programme was one of the very early adopters of walking football back in 2012, 2013, and since then it's gradually built up. They won a lot of competitions in the early days, and then as more teams have got involved, it's become more competitive. But we're still a very successful programme. In fact, just last week there, we had 4 different teams competing in the Glasgow Trophy, which is one of the major competitions every year, and our over 70s actually went on and won it, sort of thing. Got a very strong over 70s programme this year, so they won that, and the 3 other teams also did well, sort of thing. And to say, quite a few of the guys have represented Scotland at walking football tournaments, and I think a few of them have went abroad and won World Cup effectively titles. So they've been very, very much part of these teams.
I think we have to also bring up the 60s team from last year. Won the Cup, second in the league, and won the Champions League, seen as the top club in Scotland at 60s level for that time. And that's all down to, you talk about volunteers, got all people who volunteered to help out and get it running, because it's not a case of just turning up with a bag, putting it down and putting a strip on. There's people like yourself who organise the tournaments and how the teams are getting there. And it all breeds down through the levels, and all of us now have got this edge to be better than the 60s group.
There was 2 Academy Board Directors as part of that successful over 70s team, so we've got a board meeting on Thursday night. I can imagine what's going to be like. Penalty shootout, I understand. Really exciting. The Associate Finance Director scored the winning penalty.
Yeah. Hopefully a lot more success to come then in the future.
Hopefully, I would say we've got a few more competitions. We all play in leagues regularly, and we've got hopefully a couple of teams going out to Portugal later in the year to play in a competition out there, so we're looking for hopefully bringing a trophy back there would be nice.
Nice. Right. Thank you to Alan, Callum and Scott for coming on and talking to us today.
We're now joined by Managing Director Graham Matthew. So how are you, Graham?
I'm good, guys. Thanks a lot for having us along today.
No bother. So first question we're going to do is, how did you become Managing Director at Ayr United?
So I worked at Hibernian for 7 years. That was my last job, and I had a period, a couple of months when I was out of work. And I used that time just to go and really speak to a lot of different people involved in football, and I wanted to learn a little bit about how managers felt working under sporting directors for a starting point, how owners felt and some of the challenges that came in owning a football club, and that brought me to speaking to David Smith. One of the things that struck me right away was he was really clear about the aspects of owning a club that he felt he was good at. He had a real clear plan to take the club forward, and I think what we found after 3 or 4 conversations was some of the elements that he was really strong in were things that I hadn't necessarily experienced before, and maybe what was missing at the club was somebody that had some experience in working within the kind of football department. So again, after about 4 or 5 conversations, we came up with the role of managing director to have probably more of an ownership of what was happening in the football department, but also maybe a kind of more general oversight of what was happening elsewhere at the club. And I've loved it. Been there nearly 2.5 years now, and it's been a terrific experience for me, and I'm loving every minute.
Tell us a bit more in detail. What do you do as managing director? What's your job entail?
Good question. There's loads of variety to it. I mean, I guess a lot of the thing is trying to kind of lead the football department as much as possible and support the head coach, you know, Lee Bullen initially and now Scott, in terms of trying to implement what they want to do. There's bits in there about trying to see how we can bring the academy a bit closer to the club than it's maybe been before. And there's elements that I'm learning for the first time in terms of ticketing. So new ticketing provider this summer. Last year we went through a whole process to find a new kit supplier, for example. So learning loads about selling kits and things that happen in the shop and ticketing and various things like that. So there's never a dull day, and there's loads of things going on.
You were talking about Scott Brown, obviously the new manager of the club. Was appointing him an easy decision, would you say?
I think there's always a risk in whoever you bring in. And the first thing I probably want to say is that I don't want to be, in my career, wherever it goes in the future, somebody who hires and fires managers a lot. Because I think essentially if you're clear on what you want from somebody and you go through a pretty robust process, you'd like to think you bring in somebody that fits what you want and is good enough to do the things that you want them to do. And then my role essentially is to try and help and support them as much as I can. So we were really sad to lose Lee. We felt he did a really good job at the football club for a long period of time. And he was the right appointment, looking back to what we felt we needed and wanted at the time. I guess in this process, what we were really keen for was somebody that came in probably that had worked at a different level, either as a player or a coach, and that could maybe bring us a different edge to how they went about things. What really impressed us with Scott and Stephen, because that's maybe the first time we've interviewed two together, was that they work well as a team. So Scott brings his own attributes to the role, but Stephen very much complements him, and the things that Scott leads on, Stephen will support, and there's other elements that Stephen leads on really well, and Scott finds a way to support that as well. So we think that we've got a good management team here, and the thing I've been really impressed with is I've worked really well with the staff that's here as well, and really been clear in what they've asked of them, and you know, it's shown in terms of the form of the team at this moment in time.
Just want to talk a wee bit about the United Player Fund. How much does the Player Fund itself benefit the club?
Oh, massively. I mean, we genuinely couldn't sign the number of players that we do, and sometimes they've always prided themselves on being able for us to sign one more player. And that one more player historically has been people like Lon Shankland, and Kieran McInroy was another player. Logan Chalmers has been that. So it's always incumbent on us to spend that money wisely, but genuinely it makes a massive difference, and we're really appreciative of everything that the supporters do, but particularly those that give into the player fund, because it goes directly into the player budget.
You're also talking about how in your role you're hoping to bring the academy closer to the first team. How important is youth to the club?
Yeah, I mean, I think on so many levels it's important, and the academy here does, as you've heard from Alan, I'm sure earlier, so much great work in the community, and that is the front-facing face of the club that goes out into all different areas of the community and delivers some, genuinely life-changing programmes. But I think what's important for us is because there's so much good work goes on within the Youth Academy and the Talented Young Players programme, players need a pathway, and it's always difficult. Certainly in my role, I don't think it's easy to dictate to a manager that they must play young players or they must bring so many into the squad or they must bring them into training. But what I've found here with Lee and Scott is they've got a genuine desire to do it. They want to work with young players. We've had 15-year-olds training with the first team this year. Ollie Ekerpoint's been training with the first team since he's been 14. Not because Graham Mathie says that's what needs to happen, but because there's staff there that want to do that and see potential in young players and want to give them every chance to succeed. So there is an element when we try and plan a squad where we identify the talented young players that are there and hopefully give them a pathway to keep improving in their development, whether that's Ollie and Dylan going on loan to the Lowland League, or whether that's a Lucas McRoberts getting a chance in the squad and making his debut recently, or a Fraser Bryden that's pushing to become a starting player more regularly. So they're always on our radar, because I think for a club like here, the academy and making best use of is vitally important.
So obviously there's a lot of change and development going on in the club, like the new stand, new manager. How important is that? How crucial is that for the club itself? Yeah,
it was always part of David Smith's plan that, I don't think he'd been me saying he's a wealthy individual in his own right, but he's not wanted to throw money at a player budget, and I think we've seen that on countless occasions at a lot of clubs, that people that do that achieve a degree of short-term success probably, and then it's boom and bust, and then people are scrambling to keep the club alive after that. he wanted to invest his money in infrastructure, which helps us raise money to then have an increased player budget to then hopefully keep improving on the pitch. And you know, that's a big part of what he wanted to do. What I have seen though is that clubs that do build stuff sometimes do struggle for a period, and that was one thing we spoke about last summer, is can we still perform while everything's transforming round about us. So we've got 3 games left of the season. Unfortunately the promotion playoffs is away from us, but hopefully we can get a result over the next couple of weeks and make it a kind of easier last day of the season than it's been maybe historically over the last few years.
Yeah, we're going to look forward to next season. At the club currently there's over about 10 players either out of contract or their loans are expiring. Are you hoping to retain these players, or are you hoping to get some new players in as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we've spoken about a lot is trying to have a degree of consistency amongst your squad, because I think that's important, and teams that achieve a degree of success tend to have that. So we did it in the first year I was here and kept a lot for last season. There was a few more moved on last summer, but again we'd like to try and keep the core together as much as possible. So I'm starting to have conversations now with players and their agents and various things like that. So the kind of transfer window starts now and finishes in August, so that's why I've got hardly any hair left, because it's a never-ending period of stress, just trying to make sure the squad's as competitive as it can be for the new season.
Obviously the league's a very competitive league, and as you just said, the playoffs have slipped away for us a month. Not mathematically safe at the moment, but I'm confident in Scott's abilities that he'll keep us safe. So, as on that topic, we are going to be safe. I'm confident we will be. What's your ambitions and goals for next season?
Yeah, listen, I think we want to be a club that competes at the top end of this division, and I think that's an ambition that we all share. Scott Brown's not come to United to kind of bob about mid to bottom end of the Scottish Championship. He's ambitious as an individual, and he drives everybody every day to try and match that ambition. And what happens every day, what happens on the training pitch, the way that the players will approach training, the way the staff approach their jobs, and the form since the guys have come in has been good. And if that was to have continued over the course of a full season, we would have been in the playoffs. That's what the kind of points per game ratio tells us. So there's no reason why, if we can get the recruitment right in the summer, sign the right calibre of players, keep the ones that we want to keep, that we can't be up the top end of the league, and that's certainly what we'll be striving for. So
now it's the final question. We asked David Smith the same question as well. So if money wasn't an object, what would your dream Ayr United look like?
Oh, it's a great question. Do you know, I suppose I look at clubs like Brighton and Brentford. So clubs that started out at a lower level than we did, both of them in League One in England, had a plan to try and become competitive Premier League teams. Brighton have now played in Europe, so do you know what? Why can we not be ambitious here? Why can we not? If money isn't any object, then why can we not see Ayr United playing in Europe? You know, there you go. That would be fantastic. I'd love to be part of that.
Good answer.
I think everyone would like to see that as well. So thank you for joining us today, Graham. It's been a pleasure.
No worries, guys. Thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it.
I'm now joined by first team manager Scott Brown, director of football at the Academy John Crawford, and head of Girls Academy Claire Docherty. So how are you today?
We're good. Yeah. How are you?
Good. We're fine.
Tired.
Are we bored you already?
Aye. We'll see what your answers you give me now. We'll see your word. Right, Scott, what attracted you to United? Why did you take the job?
I would say the weather.
Aye.
I played golf today and it was like a hurricane. But no, for me, the club's got an ambition. Chairman's relatively new to the club as well as a chairman. He's got an ambition for the club. He's got a desire for the club to move forward, and it ticked all the boxes as well. And it was good to be home as well. I was down in Fleetwood for 16 months, and I enjoyed my time there. But it was time to come back up to Scotland.
Obviously, you're a successful player when you're playing. So, has there any been big challenges from being a player to now being a manager?
Yeah, you've got to learn them very, very quickly. And as a player, you can change a lot on the field. As a manager, you've got to make sure you do all your work the week leading up to the game. Then you've got to put full trust in the lads as well. It's not like we can run on the park and myself and Stephen was too slow now, I would still be playing. But it's a lot to do with tactics and how we work throughout the week. And as long as the lads stick to the game plan, we have done quite well. And there's maybe been the odd occasion that we've maybe not played as well as we could have, but the lads have been exceptional since we've came in. It's been enjoyable as well to work with them because they're keen, they want to learn as well, but they're also, we know we're going to make mistakes, as in us individually, myself and Stephen, but also the players as well, and we have to get over that quickly.
You obviously mentioned Stephen Whittaker. How important is he to you doing your job?
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's tactically on the ball all the time. He likes to analyse how teams play, he likes to analyse how we play, he likes to watch back the games and make sure that we're all focused and we're all organised to how we wanted to play the game on the Saturday. But at the same time, he's a good people person, and he's good about the players as well. He's got that good understanding that they probably don't want to always come to myself and speak to me, but they can use that by going to Stephen, speaking to Wits, and then coming in to me as well. So he's a good middleman, shall we say, between the players and also myself.
So John, I would just want to ask you a bit about the United Youth Academy. How do you assess when a young player's ready for that step up, whether it be first team football, under 18 football? How do you assess when they're ready for that move?
Well, I think the first thing is they've got to be consistent in terms of their performances in the 18s. Well, we work closely together, so the next step would, or has been this season before, has been reserve football. A big thing which I've got to say, and Scott's sitting beside me today, which has been really, really good for the academy. He and Stephen Whittaker have been to quite a number of under 18s games, so they cast their eye on the players as well. If they see something they like, or the DNA of a player that they think that player could get an opportunity, they're involving them in first team training, which has been absolutely brilliant. There were 7 last week and 7 the week before, so massive step forward for the academy, and hopefully working together we help to develop, because the most important thing in the academy is you're developing players. So that's how I see our role, and it just all fits together quite nicely.
How important would you say, like, sending young players out on loan? Would you say that's really important for their development?
Yeah, I think playing adult football, although the 18s games are very competitive, that's for sure, but playing adult football is different, and probably the two that we would talk about today is Dylan Wattrett and Ollie Ekrapont, who've gone out to East Stirling. Both have done really well. They've had a 6-month loan, and there's no doubt from the feedback we're getting is that their performance has been really good. I know that Scott's been to see them play East Stirling as well, and I'm sure he probably would think the same, that's been a really good step for them, good move for them.
Yeah. So Scott, now for the young players that are still at state, United not got them a loan. How important are the senior players to help the younger players? How important is that for the younger players?
Yeah, the older ones do help them a lot. They've got a lot of time for them as well, and they take them under their wing, and as in what they do at most clubs. But here there is a good bond because they know quite a lot of the players are younger. They've been coming into the squad, and we've lucky enough we've had the Easter holidays, so we've had the luxury to bring the lads that are still in at school as well to have a little sneak preview of what they're like as well, and to see not how far away they are, but to see how good they are compared to what the quality is in training as well. But at the same time, the ones that do go on loan, as John says, the 2 that went to East Stirling have done really well. We went and watched them. Dylan's probably improved a lot since we came in, and that's going out there and learning that men's football, but he also has to have an understanding of how we want to play, and he takes that on really, really well if we go on to his club that he's on loan with, and then to coming back into us as well, because 2 different managers have got 2 different ways and means, and the way they want to play, they want to build up. So it's been good. It's a learning curve for both of them, because you're not always going to have the one manager throughout your whole career. So it's good to learn different formations, different ways the teams want to press or sit in. And there's no right way, there's no wrong way in football, because as you see in top teams that sit in, do really well against the teams that have loads of possession, as you can see that on the football the other night as well.
Claire, I just want to come over to you now. Congratulations on making the playoffs.
Thank you.
Must be a massive achievement. How are you all feeling?
We're buzzing. Aye. We believed it was going to happen, so for it to actually come to this is great.
How many games you got left in this season?
1 league game next Sunday, and then the playoff game.
Means you're confident you'll get there?
Confident in our abilities, but it's who shows up on the day, and we still don't know our opponent yet because they've still got 5 games to go, so we're confident that we can do a job. But
just want to ask a wee bit about the academy as well. What does the academy have in place to encourage girls' participation in football?
We're really inclusive at the academy. We've always been inclusive, so we're trying to drive the standards, and I've been doing that since I got the job, obviously. But we're also keeping that inclusivity, if that's how you pronounce it. We're still keeping that. For example, the under-14s, we're trying to push them into national performance, but there was a rise of players coming up for the under-12s into the 14s that are not quite ready, so we've kept a separate team for them. So we'll get 2 under-14s now just to keep them playing. We don't want to be that club that turns players away for not being good enough or not ready yet, because it's up to us to nurture them and get them to the point that they are ready. You can never give away a talent, you just don't know what they can become. So that's what we're all about, is being inclusive, being like making sure everybody enjoys it and also drives standards, whether it's on the pitch or off.
So Claire, how important is it to promote girls' football for the academy?
Well, it's massive. When I need to compare it to my childhood, when I had to travel quite far to actually go and train with a girls' team. I never joined a team until I was 11 because it never existed. And when I did start, it was a half an hour drive. I'm saying far distance, but compared to nowadays, in my area there's 4 teams accessible to my 2 daughters. I've brought them to Ayr though, obviously. So it's such a big difference, and to keep promoting it, to get girls to play, it's actually not that difficult anymore. When I first came in, I was kind of like, right, I'm going to get as many playing as possible. Now I'm actually having to start waiting lists, which is great, but it's also unfortunate at the same time. But it just shows where the growth is at, and girls are playing now and they're getting judged, and they're in amongst boys' teams, and some of the girls playing in the boys' teams are actually the best players in the park, but there's no judgment there, and people are proud of them. They're not getting slagged as much as what I did when I was at school. But obviously you overcome that. You don't care about the kind of things when you're growing up. So it's just nice that it's a norm these days.
Just a question for both Joanna and Claire. It's what impact does the A United Football Academy have on the wider community?
Do you want to answer that one first? Or?
I think it just shows that we're trying to achieve something, and I think the growth of the whole setup, it's not just the boys' academy, it's not just the girls' academy or the first team. As a collective, everything's rising, and it seems like it's kind of skyrocketing, going really fast. There's things going on behind the scenes. Obviously, you spoke to Davy Smith, you'll know about the infrastructure and bringing in Scott Brown. These things are like kind of showing what we're going to achieve and we're trying to achieve, and it isn't just a case of sitting in and let things happen. So everything that everybody's trying to achieve is all coming together as one. So from anybody looking from the outside into Ayr United, we just look like we're just getting better and better, and we get complimented on things all the time. For example, social media and the support the women's team get, and the support the men's team get. As John spoke about the relationship between the academy and the first team, that is the kind of thing that it just paints a picture in itself. It shows what we're trying to do.
What about yourself, John?
I think it's I mean, there's 2 parts to the academy. You've got the talented young footballers, which is very much the football side, and you've got the community side, and community side is massive. And even just to name a few of the things, you've got the memories group, which is really, really important for a lot of older people, or maybe people that are suffering from dementia, mental health issues, or whatever. So these are monthly meetings. We bring guests in. It's been very, very successful. We've got walking football for old guys that still try and kick a ball.
Like yourself.
Like myself. But it reaches out in the community. I mean, we did a study a couple of years ago, and it's actually incredible how many young people and adults that Ayr United are involved with in their community. I mean, it's massive, and possibly it's something that we don't always promote it maybe as well as we could do. But it's massive in terms of the community. So many things ongoing. Football for Life's another group. You've got the Honest Men's Club, which is another wee group. So there's lots and lots of things going on. So it's the 2 work hand in hand. They dovetail quite nicely with the football side and the community. But it's Football for Life, and that's hugely important.
So now back to you, Scott. How important do you think is youth development? How big a part will that play in the future of the club?
I think if you look at us now, our percentage was 28% of the youth academy was involved in the first team squad and played games. So we want that to continue, but at the same time, you have to be good enough. You have to be able to hold your own weight. You have to be able to hit our stats and understand the shape and structure that we want to play as well. So it's important when they're coming through the youth that they know that there's limits that they have to hit, and we're working on that now. So we've not been in the door that long, but our whole focus is on obviously bringing players to the club, trying to make the club better, and trying to push up the league position as well. But at the same time, it's also to help out the youth players as well, that when they're coming into us, whether it's for one day, the whole week, but can we give them extra? Can we give them the small details that might help them in the future, that become a better player or have a better understanding of what to eat when they're away from football as well. It's not just about turning up for that hour and a half in training, it's about how hard you work when you're away from that as well, because if you look at top pros, top players, they don't just turn up for one training session and disappear. They're at the gym before training, stretching, recovery sessions, cool down sessions, watching what they eat, watching what the body fat is. So football's now went to an extremely huge level, as in what you need to learn and how you have to focus your body and mindset towards, and it's not just turning up and being a good football player and talented football player. You have to hit stats throughout.
Obviously there's 3 games left this season, but looking forward to next season, what's your ambitions and goals for next season?
We'll tell you that when this season's over. We've got a huge game at the weekend against Dundee United. You always focus on the next game. You don't get too distracted about us worrying about next season, and as it is, we're not 100% safe yet, so we need to make sure that our mindset's on that.
Yeah. What about yourself, Claire? You're going to give me the same answer there, looking forward?
Well, we need to see how this season ends before we can decide what we're doing next season, but like I always say, you never start off aiming for the bottom of a table, so you always need to be ambitious to get to a good standard.
Correct.
I suppose this could be a question for all of you. Like, what message would you give to players that are hoping to make it professional?
Go on, John, you start.
Well, first of all, obviously you need to have the talent and the ability, but you need to work hard. I mean, Scott spoke about it there. It's not just what you do when you turn up and play your game or you turn up for training. You've got to be dedicated. You've got to have that commitment. You've got to run about in a football pitch. I know a lot of people say that's a given, but I know that the stats show we can look at our young players at 18s. We can compare them to the first team and see what a midfield player in the Championship would run, what we would expect an under 18 to run. And you've got to have that. You've got to want to win. I know I'm kind of saying we're developing players, but I always think as well when they step up to reserve level or they step up to train with the first team, you're trying to give them the right messages in terms of you have to want to win as well. So there is that wee bit as you go up the stages, it gets tougher. But you have to have a will to win, you need to work hard, you need to run about, and you need to have the ability.
Yep, there you go, Claire.
Spot on.
Same as John, except I'll add in that you need to have a good attitude, because I think attitude's massive and it's really important. And it's not just your attitude towards football, it's your attitude towards your teammates, towards your coaches, and showing respect to the people that are actually trying to guide you, and your opponents as well. It's a massive one, respect.
Well, last question. We'll change it up a wee bit. If you were to invent one ridiculous rule to add into football just to mess up everyone,
VAR.
What would it be? Just VAR?
So happy I retired just before that.
That's a good point. I would change the nets into hockey nets and see how many games end 0-0.
That's terrible.
What about yourselves?
You want it to be exciting, no?
Well, yeah.
You want goals.
Or maybe make it full contact.
I'd probably go back I'm up for that. I'd probably go back to that, give the striker the benefit of the doubt.
Aye.
I think give them that benefit of doubt, your eye, so that they can hopefully go and score more goals, and make sure the defenders are a little bit more switched on as well.
I like that answer. Well, thank you all very much for coming on. Thank you, it's been a pleasure talking to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Now we're joined by a fabulous group of A United fans. We're joined by Christine, Rory, John and Caris. How are we all? Good.
Good, thanks.
Let's start with you, Christine. What is your favourite memory of being an A United fan?
Wow. Seeing my brother play, I have to say, number 2, back in the 80s, McIntyre.
A wee while ago.
A wee while ago, yeah.
So how long have you supported the club for?
Probably since then. Stephen was with them for how long, Rory?
7 years.
7 years. So, and then when he left, I just kept going, because my dad was involved as well. So I went.
What about yourself, Rory? How long have you supported the club?
Well, from birth, as Christine mentioned, my dad played for the club in the 80s, and then he'd moved on before I was born. But my papa stayed on and was the kit man at the club for over 20 years. So yeah, there was no choice in the matter, just straight in from birth.
And what's your favourite memory?
A couple of really good ones. I've got a lot of family memories as well, which are quite nice, but from just purely a fan memory, when we waited for the draw to come in for us to win the league, standing at the side of Somerset, was that 2018, and just that anticipation, just waiting to hear that it had been full time elsewhere, and then just running onto the pitch. It was brilliant. I've seen us been on the pitch a few times, seen us been promoted a good few occasions, but that one was just special because we got the league trophy and it wasn't the playoffs.
It's the nerves when you're in the stand as well.
Oh, crazy.
You actually feel everyone's nerves around you.
Yeah. Penalty shootouts of the playoffs are actually even easier because at least it's driven by what's happening in front of you. You're just waiting for news from elsewhere. Yeah, but it was brilliant. Yeah.
What about yourself, Caris?
I've supported the United for about 8 years. My uncle supported them since he was a boy, probably about 50 odd years, and he just said to me one day, he was like, come and watch this. But I was like, my first game was 6-0 against Hibs, so then you can imagine what my thoughts were then. But I've been stuck ever since. So
What's your favourite memory?
Probably beating Kelly 1-0 at Somerset in the Cup. It's unbelievable. Or the playoffs up in Inverness, like you were there, about 8 of us went up, and you just, about 80 minutes you're thinking down and out done, and then 90 minutes you're near enough on the park celebrating with everybody. It's brilliant.
8 attacking players on the pitch. Mark McKenzie scoring the winner. What about yourself?
I've supported there for, was it maybe the same as you? How long have you supported there for?
Aye, 16 years?
Aye, probably about 10 years we've supported there for. My favourite memory for here is definitely is when we all went up to Inverness, the last game of the season. Last season, wasn't it? Last season.
Yeah, last season.
What was that, like 70 minutes, 5th place, like 90 minutes, last minute winner, got 2nd place. Although we'll try and forget about the playoffs, it was absolutely great. Aye.
So now we're going to ask, we'll start with Christine, what would you do if you were in Scott Brown, the new manager's position? What would you do if you were manager?
Oh my, I don't manage. What would I do? Truthfully, I don't know. You know, just keep going. He's new in the club, so he needs to get a feel of what the players can do. I know he's been there for a few months now, but a few months in football is really not a long time. He needs to build his own team up, and he needs to see the capabilities of the players that he has at his disposal at the moment. So I keep doing what he's doing, and hopefully he'll get the results.
Would you change anything in the team if you were the manager?
I'd put my brother back in.
Would you play right back? Probably better
I think it's tough, and it's something, but when you've been a fan of the club for years, the hardest thing for clubs with our level of resources is the product on the park. There's been so many years where we've played really nice football, but we've lacked the physical side of the game or the kind of the mental mentality to get through it. And then there's been times we've been the flip side of that, the complete opposite, where the football's not been that good, but we've been a really strong team that's hard to beat. So if I was Scott Brown, it's trying to find that middle ground between that, because that's the teams that get out of our league. If you can do both of those things, it's not an easy job. That's why it hasn't been done before now. But if we want to get into the top flight, that's the sweet spot we need to hit.
And if you were a manager, what would you do?
I'd be trying to utilise his contacts and the top tier players that are getting out of contract and know that they would play at our level, just to try and bring that in, because that's, again, you tend to find that for that previous problem there I mentioned, players who maybe are either good at the physicality or good with the ball and not good at both are playing in this league, but you've got a lot of players in the top flight who have that, so that's really, I think, what we're needing more in the team, players who've played at a higher level who can improve us as a squad.
We'll move up to the chairs now. What would you do if you were manager?
Well, there's only 3 games left, so I would just keep going with them, and then after the end of the season I think he's got to have a really good think about who he wants in his team, who doesn't want in his team, because he's wasting plenty of talent on that bench. He's wasting people like Paul Smith, Charlie Robinson, just wasting them. They're sitting there doing nothing where they could be out improving themselves. And I think he needs to make that clear to them, like, you're not going to be in my team, like, I'm going to let you go, rather than just holding them on the bench. But I think he does have to have a really good sit down and think about where we go from here, if he's continuing to stay.
Is there any players that you have in mind that you want A United to sign?
I think Robbie Crawford. I think bringing him back would be a big help in the middle of the park alongside Murdoch. There's loads of players that you could sign, but it's just whether it's realistic or not.
What about you?
I agree with Caris here. I think he needs to have a good hard look at the bench and think about all the players that are on it. Like, there's wasted talent sitting on the bench. Like, at least give them a chance to go on loan to a different club and show how good they are to other clubs, and maybe they can come back and prove themselves in the first team for a year. That's what I'd do as gaffer. So.
Do you think there needs to be a big summer rebuild? Or do you
Absolutely.
Think the same?
I think I need to look at some of the players there and get them away. And I know they shouldn't be there. Like, some of them are no good enough for our squad, and some of them are. So he needs to have a strong hard look at the team.
So we're going to look, obviously the managers are high positions in the club, but obviously the chairman is even higher. So what would you do if you were chairman, if you were David Smith? Up to you, Christine.
I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. I'll be truthful. It wouldn't be a job that I would relish. Thank you very much.
Let David do it.
Yeah.
What would you do, Rory?
On you go, Rose.
Rip down the railway terrace, doing the great job of the North Terrace just now. It's going to be fantastic. But when you look at clubs of our size that have survived in the top tier, it's because they've utilised the big crowds from the big teams when we've got away days. If we've got spare money left over, which we might not, in all honesty, because money is finite, but rip down that away terrace, build a decent sized stand that isn't for us to use, sit it 50 yards away from the park so their fans can go over there, but then so we've got space to bring away fans in and generate revenue. Look at what happens with Livingston in the top flight. They sell 3 stands to the Old Firm teams. They've got at least guaranteed 3 home games a season, sometimes 4, depending on where they finish. And that funds a lot of their budget. We need to be realistic that that's going to be a big thing for us. So yeah, that's what I'd be doing.
Paris?
I think just maybe like looking at the stadium as a whole, like there's a lot of things you can pick out that probably do need fixed. Like they built that kids stand, and when you sit in the front row, you can't see over the pole. What was the point in that? Like you've got the railings in the Somerset Road end, like they're off falling apart, and when somebody kicks a ball at the Somerset Road end, all the duck falls off. So you know, it's
You're not wrong.
Simple things like that. Obviously we're building the North Terrace and like that looks amazing, but then if you're going to build there, you're going to have to continue going. You can't just have one standout stand and the rest looks old. And I'd probably look at like budgets as well. Like he needs to give the manager kind of free rein on who he signs. Like I know probably in the past, like he's probably stuck his nose in and been like, oh, I want this player, and it's no work to it. So if you give Scott Brown free rein of like, look, I want to sign this player, and this player, then if it works, it works.
My main thing's the stand, but I think he's done brilliant with the new terrace, and it's absolutely amazing. He does. I think a lot of teams when they come to Somerset say how good it is. It's like a great away day, but they do complain about like the facilities and stuff like that, and how kind of broken and like worn down the away stand is. So I definitely be improving the Somerset Road end and the away stand, and build a gate between the Somerset, like the Ayr fans and the away fans, so we can get through when we play teams like Arbroath and wee tiny teams, so we can get easy access to the opposite side.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Do not rip up the grass park.
No, absolutely not.
They do not put plastic down. Yeah,
Definitely
that's
not.
an absolute
Mental
must.
agreement with that.
We've got a brilliant surface. We've had a brilliant surface for years. Think of the years that I watched this when I was a teenager when we were in League One and we weren't performing very well. We had the best park in the league though. It allowed us to play good football and that allowed us to get back up to the Championship. We can't get rid of it.
What's your opinion? Think we played better on AstroTurf or on grass?
I like the fact that the AstroTurf obviously allows us to play like a nice standard of football, and I want to see us playing an attractive standard of football. But and then obviously you minimise the games getting potentially postponed for home games. But it was a grass game. Like it's just a much better product, I think.
I agree. Right, well, before we started, I got you still write down your A United all-time starting 11. So he's going to take me through what he's got. So for reference, this is my team here. I've got Deepo Akinyemi, partnership with Lauren Shatton up front.
What a partnership.
That's a good partnership, isn't it? Alan Forrest on the left, Andy Murdoch and Ryan Stevenson in midfield, and Luke McCowan on the right. Then at the left back I get Daniel Harvey, and then the two centre halves I get McGinty and Stephen Bell with Nicky Devlin at right back. And in nets I've got the one and only Greg Fleming. What do you think of that team?
Good team.
That team walks the championship.
Nah, never.
Not as good as that one.
Yeah. The top two are going to bang you in like 70 goals anyway, so you're fine there, sorted there.
Yeah, let's see what you've got.
So Christy and I have went for, well, we've been a little bit biased because we went for a family friend, Davy Purdy, as a goalkeeper who played for the team in the 80s, and then went for my dad and Christine's brother as the right back because we'd get absolutely slaughtered if we didn't. Then on to more recent players and the success of them. Centre-back partnership of Martin Campbell and Stevie Bell. Big Bobo Martin Campbell was a brilliant servant for the club, particularly in the time in my late teens when I was going week in, week out into away days. He was great. Stevie Bell was great as well. Paddy Redding for just a current player at left-back, obviously a really good player, Paddy. Into the midfield, went for Alan Forrest because he's just done great since leaving the club, and obviously coming into the team so young at 16. We've had a lot of players come through the academy at that young age. I don't think any of them have done as well and made as many appearances as a teenager as Forrest has done, which is great. And then I've been really biased towards like the team that got us promoted in 2009 and 2011 by putting in Scott McLaughlin, Dean Keenan and Ryan Stevenson, because that was just brilliant. Yeah, some great memories of winning promotion at Airdrie, and then again up front, winning promotion 2 years later at Brecon in 2011. The Moth, what a goal. And you can't leave out Shankland.
Arguably one of the best strikers.
Brilliant, yeah.
What about yourself, Caris?
I've went
How
for
similar is it? Is it very similar?
2 years.
To everyone else's?
Those are quite
Not
similar.
very. Mine and John's are quite similar. I've went for Ross Doohan in goals because I think for a young player he just demanded his box all the time. I've went for Nicky Devlin at right back. Just he's done amazing since he left there. He's went for Livingston to Aberdeen. He's done really well. I went Stevie Bell at right centre back. Just I thought he was brilliant. He was just a wall. He was solid. And I've went with Michael Rose as well. He was pretty much. I think he was very underrated when he started, but then he proved himself, and now he's playing in the English Championship. So, and I've went Daniel Harvey at left back because he was just amazing for us. I've went on the left. I've went Luke McCowan. Just excelled since he's left there. Went to Dundee and he's done brilliant.
Game he played last night. He was amazing.
He was really good. He was a standout player last night on that park. I've went for Murdoch in the midfield because I think he's the standout right now. I've went for Jamie Adams at right mid because the big farmer man, nobody wants to come up against Jamie Adams, not one person. And I've went Forrest at wide right because he was good when he was with us, but now he's went up to Hearts and he's just proved himself. And I've went Shankland and Depot up front because how could you know? Just unbelievable.
My team is extremely similar to Caris's, but I've also gone for Ross Doohan in goals. I think he's one of the best keepers we've had in recent times. Nicky Devlin again at right back. Michael Rose at centre back. We were torn between McGinty, weren't we? You've got McGinty in yours, don't you?
I just put him in for a recent player.
No disrespect to McGinty. I love him. I think he's a great player, but I do think Michael Rose is more of a footballer than Sean McGinty. I think he can actually doesn't need to just punt up the park every 5 minutes. He actually keeps the ball on the ground and passes it.
That's enough for you.
Sorry. I went for Stephen Bell as left centre back. He's my captain in that team. I went for Daniel Harvey. I think he's done really well. I think he was one of the first players out of that squad at that time to go to a bigger club. One of the first ones that he made to MK Dons or something like that. He was really good. Forrest on the right hand side. Again, he's done absolutely amazing. He's really good. Went for Murdy, Andy Murdoch and Ross Docherty in the midfield. I think I was torn between Jamie Adams, as you said, and he wants to come up against Stefano, but I think Ross Docherty was a big miss once he left the club. Luke McCowan on left mid, and then everybody can guess my two strikers, Depot and Shankland up front.
I can't believe none of these went for Moffat.
I was going to say, what do you think of all of us having the same team?
Yeah, brilliant, Moffat's the Moff, you know?
The Moff.
I see when you said the Moff, I was like, damn,
You've got to remember the recent times when we watched there, like Moffat was at the kind of coming down in his career.
You probably saw him
when he took his shirt off and scored the last minute winner
at Brecon in 2011, honestly, what a feeling, what a journey back.
He was charismatic. The Moff is charismatic.
Yeah.
You know, the fans were all behind him. He just had that way of drawing them in, and as if they were part of the team. It just was fabulous.
And the type of player he was as well, because, I mean, if you've seen him towards the end, he was obviously really good and technical, but see at first when he came from the juniors, he was rapid. He was so quick, and it was just, and he ran all day, and it's just that level of effort that you wanted to see from players. And they had probably better players technically in the team back then, like some Mark Roberts and stuff like that, but Moff was just, everybody loved him for that reason, because he just would run through a big wall, and he was great at it.
You saying he's rapid and me too glaring at you?
It wasn't even the end.
I do think at the end of his career he was very intelligent. He knew who he was he's a leader as well. He just could command everybody on the pitch very well.
Yeah. See if you could combine his technical ability at the end of his career with his speed at the start, or he'd have played for Scotland.
A couple of interesting lineups. It would be nice to see what other people have to say about your lineups, and maybe they'll put their lineups in as well.
Get slated.
There's obviously a lot of past players in the team. We're going to move on about more about the current state of the club. What are your opinions on the club currently, about the state of it? Do you think they're
in a good place?
Oh. You go, Rory.
Brilliant place. Chairman's done a good job. The infrastructure we're putting in place off the park's fantastic. The product on the park has been inconsistent, but for the best part it's been good. Last season was obviously a great finish to finish second. It was really unfortunate for Lee Bullen the way it went. A really nice guy, but Bruni coming in has brought in a lot of optimism and stuff as well. He definitely needs his own transfer window in the summer, but I think we're in a really good place. I'm optimistic about the future. I haven't always been optimistic as a fan of United. I've seen us relegated more than enough times over the years. So it's a good time to be an Ayr fan.
I just
think it's so sad when the fans don't get behind the team.
I agree
You
with
know, I hate hearing the fans booing the players on the park. Okay, they all have bad days, we all have bad days, but don't boo them while they're on the park. Give them the support that they need. That support is what motivates them and puts the results on the score at the end of the match. But I hate hearing fans booing
I agree
the
with
players. Absolutely hate it.
Do you not see the booing could be a sign of could motivate the players? No.
No. I've been involved in football and boys football for so long, and one of the things my dad told me, my dad was involved in football, and he said, you never criticise while they're on the park. You wait until they're off the park and then give constructive criticism. You don't bring them down whilst they're playing.
Yeah, I can see it if he's getting beat 6-0, then fair enough. I'm a bit harsh. The fans will be annoyed, so it's a way to express their anger. But just when I was when we were up abroad at the weekend, it was 5-0, wasn't it? And then there was a guy sitting behind me, and we were up 5-0. This was when we were up 5-0, and they were playing the ball in the back, and he's going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I was like, "We're 5-0 up. Why are you shouting at a bad thing at the team? Like, why do you not just look at the positive side? It's 5-0. That's because they want 10. That's what it is. They want more goals. There's never enough, is it?
To be fair, we should have scored 8 or 9 against but you can't be annoyed at a 5-0 scoreline. It doesn't happen very often.
No.
What do you do?
I think I'm happy with the way the club is now. As I said, like my first game was 6-0 against Hibs. Like Lee Griffiths ran right past me and celebrated, and Jason Cummings. To look at it now from like where we are now, kind of being up there like second, third, fourth, it's really good to see. And what they're doing in the community as well, it's brilliant. Trying to bring everyone together, like in the schools and stuff. Like I work for the community, and we get all the players and the managers down, all that, to like interact with the kids and stuff, and give out free tickets and stuff. It just brings the community together. So I think we're going forward. But as I say, like summer will tell, time will tell, like how we start next season and where we go from there.
I agree with everybody here. I think the club's going in the best way it could be going in the last couple of years. We're going to be alright in the next, like, let's say 3 to 4 years. I think we're going to win the Premiership.
That's too close.
That's very bold.
I think we're going to be promoted. I also do think as well, bringing Scott Brown in, it's a big name to the club, a lot of attraction. Like it's good. Like we need to stop this revolving door of managers. Like it was ridiculous. Like there was no stability in the team. Like the hoppy football, just
ball.
So I do think having Scott Brown in, it's a big name. I think will push us up the league, and I think we'll be promoted soon.
So now, last question. So just all you've got to say is the position you think the club will finish in next season.
Next season.
So we'll start with you, Christine.
Third.
Okay, I like that.
Rory?
Second.
Fourth.
First.
Win the playoffs?
Yeah.
Win the playoffs?
Yeah.
Win the playoffs?
No.
Well, one profit do
Maybe realistic up here.
No, it's nice to be a bit ambitious, isn't it? It's nice to be positive. But anyway, thank you all for coming on and talking to us. It's been a pleasure talking to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
If you made it this far, thank you very, very much for watching.
Thank you to all our guests, but that's all from us. Goodbye.